welcome to Santa Barbara. I'm painting out in front of the Waterhouse Gallery here, outside, and I'm painting on a 18 by 24 piece of stretched canvas that has been gessoed with a little ochre, brown, and white, a little blue to cool it off. And I'm going to paint this view of Ravello, and you can see it's in a square format, so I'm going to do some recomposing. The thing I liked about it was the negative space. So what I'm going to try and do is crop about here, probably compress this a little bit. All right. With that in mind, we're going to get a real quick sketch in here so we can get right into the painting. And palette today: titanium white, Naples yellow, yellow ochre, cat orange hue. Let's see, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. I actually threw a little cerulean out. I'm not sure why, but I did. Sap green and asphaltum. And that's pretty much our palette for the day. We're going to get kind of the approximation of this angle. One of the things I like about this composition is the angle. Angle, angle, angle. So, get that going. And we're going to find this point about here because we're going to condense this and make that a lot less. So we're going to do that. We're going to do this little hillside, which comes in about here. And I'm sketching with a little blue, brown, and a little bit of white I mixed into it too, so it isn't too harsh. I want this to be about here. This is going to go up about here, come down about here, and then probably about at this point, right about here, is where we're going to do the angle. We're going to look at the angle first, not the buildings. Those we'll put on top. So we're going 1/3 to 2/3 basically is the ratio, and we're going to kind of sketch in some of the buildings, but not all of them. Some of them just going to paint in. We're going to get some of the activity. There's one right on the edge here. Want to get that? I'm going to move it in just a little bit. We go out. We're going to pick up some building tops. We're not going to get all the detail in these buildings, just a little bit. Then we have that actually occurs where this intersects. So that's going to occur more right in here, which is going to be, this is going to come down. I can move this over, actually. It's giving me opportunity. I can open things up just a little bit. So don't want to spend too long. And if I leave buildings out, who cares, huh? The only people that care are the people that live there. And I doubt if any of those people are watching today. Ravello, for those of you guys that don't know, is a wonderful little town up in the hills above on the Amalfi Peninsula in Italy. And it's just charming. Kind of getting kind of the bumps and lay of what's going on here. Whether I do it exactly like that, I don't know. I think as I progress into it, I'll have a better feel. And then there's some buildings down about in here, just to give an approximation as to where they're going to go. Probably going to sit down about, my guess is about here. Notice I said my guess. That's an important factor, because that's what you're doing. You're organizing, or you're interpreting, I should say. I always use the word, I like when I talk to students, let me see what you're interpreting. So that's what we're doing. As artists, we're always doing that. This is probably going to come down a little lower. And then we're going to get this wonderful little piece of light that is going to come from right about here, down here. And that's about all I'm going to do at this point, because I want to get right into the painting. So we're going to pick up one of my gesso brushes that I use quite often in the beginning, and we're going to get that sky in, which is a lot of white, just a touch of ultramarine. And it's really kind of a gray, way too much ultramarine. But this right now, it's just white ultramarine, and I see a little violet as it gets to the gets to what we would call the horizon. So we're going to get a little bit of this up here. I feel I need a little bit more ultramarine in it. So that's why I'm kind of dipping down back into the ultramarine. There we go. What's kind of neat is initially my first layer is never that thick. And what happens is some of the undercolor, whatever that might be, that you have maybe toned your canvas, comes through and it kind of mellows it out. It helps kind of harmonize some of the colors that you first put in so they're not too harsh. And being a little bit of an ochre. So what happens, I notice, is as it comes down to the horizon, particularly in this area, there's a little more violet. So I'm going to throw a little bit of alizarin into that color. And then we kind of push it right back into the paint. So it works its way right back into that color. Okay. Kind of a nice sky. So now we're going to deal with the mountain, which is light. A lot of atmosphere, beautiful atmosphere in this shot I took. I actually painted in this location. Not this exact painting, but something similar. Which is kind of nice because what that means is you've had the experience of studying it once. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing a little ultramarine white, a little bit of alizarin crimson. Okay. Oh, that actually is pretty good. It's better than I thought. Son of a gun. Shocked me sometimes. You know, when you go from your palette, which is down here, up to your canvas, sometimes it's not what you were kind of planning. So we're going to kind of get the movement as loose as we possibly can. Sometimes you notice I paint down, sometimes I paint, and sometimes I paint up to the edge. Like I'm going to paint up to the edge. But it gives you the variation. So that everything isn't just this super hard, crisp edge, which a lot of people tend to like to do. So we're going to go here. I'm hoping this is color is good. Not positive that it is, but I'm hoping it is. A little bit of wind, I just noticed. Shouldn't be. We didn't order wind today, so hopefully we won't have any. Now I'm looking at that from a distance. It looks okay. It looks a little dark. I also noticed here, this very often happens, is atmosphere moisture drops. So it lightens as it goes behind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this color that I'm using, add a little more ultramarine, a little bit more white, and we're going to move it down about in here, about in here, about here. And you notice it's lighter. So I'm working it back into the color. So it isn't this abrupt change. And we're going to bring it down. Want to get, this is the work. This is going to take the time. So you want to be as generous as you can with getting this whole top part working, because you don't want to have to go back into it too much. You might want to go back into it. If I look carefully, I can see little tiny indications of movement. Now I'm going to take a little more white, a little bit more alizarin into that ultramarine, and it's going to go lighter and a little bit more right down. That's those edges up after. So what I've done is I've lightened it slightly and added a little bit of warmth as it sinks down into this little valley behind. Okay. Stand back. Feels pretty good. Feels like this could be a lot bluer. And I might touch that up later. So Actually, what I might do right now is take some white and some ultramarine and a little bit of turf and medium, mix them together, bring a little bit more blue into that color. This is, I always refer to this, I heard this term, I think I heard it regarding, I think I read it in a, yeah, we're never playing up above everybody. I read it in a book by Andrew Loomis, and he called, some people call it broken color. He referred to it as variegated color, meaning that the color isn't just a simple flat color; it's broken up. I think one of the people that use that concept really well, for those of you that are familiar, is someone like Edgar King, who would have these mountains in the background when they have pinks in them and all kinds of various colors. Well, this is the same concept, maybe not carried as far. Might be really pretty with some pinks back there, but I'm not, right now I'm not going to mess with it. Try to mix up kind of a dirty olive green that's got some little bit of blue in it. And we're going to kind of hit these hills with a little bit of green, probably a little too much green now that I look at it. And we'll just kind of get them in there as quick as possible. We'll work our way down once we get them in. Kind of get these nice little tree edges. There's a little, see a little more blue happening as it moves to the right. So I just took that color and added ultramarine. I'll just kind of smear that in there. These are all approximations, and you just kind of cross your fingers that you're close to correct. And if you're not, you have to kind of improvise and make it work one way or another. And like some of the mixture that's happening accidentally. Although I do think I just picked up some orange. I just felt like I needed it. And now I'm going to go more blue. Now, all those colors are darkening the value. So as I'm adding those colors, very often I'm adding white. Getting that kind of gray, blue, violet working its way over here, up into that color. And I'm gonna, if this hill, much the same as this hill, lightens, I can see it. And there's more. Many artists refer to that as air. Let's add air back into an area like this. So by adding blue and white, not enough white. By adding a little blue and white, we're adding air. We'll block it in first, and then we'll get a little blend. And the blend is the easiest part. You know, people always worry about blending. And blending is just a matter of lifting the brush up and not overworking. It depends on how much of a blend you want. I don't want too much. I want it to have that painterly aspect to it. So I don't want, you know, like an airbrush type blend in this piece. But if that's what you like, that's what you put in. Also, in a 90-minute painting, you're not going to get a lot of, you know, really refined, what you would, I guess, refer to as refined type blending. So we're just getting a little bit of kind of the same concept as a variegated color. It's got values are very close. Up here, I need to come up a little higher or down. I think I actually need to come down a little lower. Don't want to use that brush. All right, so I'm just going to pick up. I've got a filbert here, and I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. The reason I didn't want to use that brush, it's already contaminated. But now I can go back and kind of get any sort of edge control I want in here, down here. I would just kind of leave it alone. Let's kind of leave it where it's at right now. I want to move on down to where I'm going to have to put in most of my hours. Okay, that's pretty good now that I stood back. This is better than this. All right, now let's get the dark, this dark color. We don't want to go all the way to the dark, to the darkest dark, simply because I want to save that. So if I need to go darker, I have the opportunity to go darker. So I mix green, brown, a little bit of white, and I'm going to mix a little ochre because it has a little bit more brown, has a little bit more warmth in it. And I'm using the same brush with all these colors in it. So I keep pushing down and getting some of those lighter colors out of it. And it's helping. I always figure if I mix clean new colors all the time, one thing that I'm doing is I'm not unifying the piece. So I'm going to start with a nice base, kind of dark, but not real dark. And add some terp because I want to thin it out a little bit. I'm using a new medium today. I'm trying this. I'm not sure how much I like it. It's put out by what's your product? It looks like it's called liquid oleo paste, and it's a little bit stiffer than the medium that I'm used to using, which is a solvent-free gel. So I'm not positive how much I like it. I'll tell you as we move along. So all I have to do is to lighten it up and make it not quite as stiff, is add a little bit of terp to it, which is I'm doing as I move along. So it basically sap green, a little bit of brown, some cad orange hue if I felt I needed it, and just a touch of white. Green and orange. Orange will dirty up your green and still keep it kind of interesting in its color. Now I want to get as much of a nice edge on those trees as I can at this point, just so I don't have to go back onto them. And all we're trying to do is get as much taken care of so you don't have to go back onto it. You have to go back onto it. Yeah, it's just time. And since we're working in a constrained time frame, you really want to get as much down initially correct as you possibly can. So as you progress, you don't have to cover everything. You only have to cover the areas that aren't working. I always say, if you can get at least 50% of your painting working, then you only have 50% of the canvas. So if you say, use a little math here and say, we're going to work on an 18 by 24 canvas. And after my lay-in, let's say I've got 50% of that it's working. All right. Not that it necessarily is, but let's just use that as a. So if you get 50% of it working on 18 by 24, think of it, you really only have a 12 by 18 to deal with in terms of any sort of refinement. I mean, it's an interesting concept that people often don't think of. I'm looking kind of the patterning of the basic dark greens. That's it. It's not complex. I'm not looking in and looking for changes in those greens. I'm just looking for the basic greens, the variations. That looks fun. So I'm here in Santa Barbara, and I happen to exhibit a lot at the Waterhouse Gallery. I dropped off some paintings, and I'm actually doing a presentation this evening for the Santa Barbara Club of a lot of my old illustration work and some of my more recent paintings. So in case anybody wonders why we're here, also, just in case you're interested, Santa Barbara's a great place to just get away for a weekend if you want. It's a little far from up where we live in Northern California, but and there's a treasure trove of images to paint around here. I think. Some artists might look at it, not see it, and that has to do with you and what appeals to you. But it's To me, it's great. It's just different. Sonoma County, where we live, has got another place that I think is just loaded. And I think it's one of the more underpainted areas in California. I'm usually looking for that. I purposely make an attempt not to paint things that everyone else tends to be painting. So I kind of lay off some of those things. Part of the reason is because it's overpainted. Part of the reason because a lot of people that paint it so darn well. There's no sense in adding me to the competition. And let's see, that's pretty good. That gives me a rough approximation. So now we're going to start to get some of these buildings in. So I'm going to take this brush, lay it down on my palette, and I'm going to pick up, say, a number. I want a flat, but so I've got a number. I think this is a number 8. Yes, it is. It's a number 8. So we're going to start to lay in some of the buildings. The reason I want a flat is flat is like a piece of architecture. It's shaped like that, which is more architectural. So, and all the values of these buildings, they're very cold. So they lean towards the blue. They're not blue, but they lean towards the blue. And they're close value with the ground plane, which happens, in this case, happens to be this green that I just put in. So if near the green, if I mix up a kind of gray blue, let's see what this looks like. Pretty good. I think it's a little too blue, so I'm adding some orange to it. Why do I add orange? Orange is the complement of blue, and we'll kind of mellow out the blues a little bit. That's pretty good. I'd probably go a little lighter. And this building here. And there's one almost adjacent to it right here. So you make what I call architectural strokes. They're not the same kind of stroke that I would make when I'm painting trees, when I'm going for different kinds of edges. So when I'm painting elements such as this, I'm using firmer, very nice, clean, firm strokes that have crisp edges. The crisp edges is what conveys the character of architecture. And I've missed some of these areas. There's a building that sneaks back here, down again, over, back here. Little pieces of buildings sneaking out. So you kind of want to come up with approximately shapes that feel accurate. You notice I said feel accurate. And you know, you're not going to get all the buildings in. I'm not. And my plan wasn't necessarily to get all the buildings in. So I keep picking up a lot of the background color. So every now and then I have to remix the color I was working with, which is that blue. And then we're going to come down. There's a tower right about here. There's some grayer, warmer buildings, which have a little bit more brown in them, right about in here. Just kind of some busy activity. And then that one building back in the corner is a little warmer. So I threw some more ochre into it. There's the ochre. And come back. Hit all these planes. A little bit of that blue building down there. Sneaks its way. This kind of comes over further. So we're getting the patterning of the buildings. And that's really what I want. I want to get that in there so that I can add any sort of additional information to those buildings. So this comes down, and then there's another building way over here. And this is a little bit more on the brown side, not quite as light. And then there is one right, and I'm going to change it, move it over further, right about there. Down. It looks like it fades about there. Right above it, is, oh, that's a nice blue. That's a good blue that I want. Right on the side, there's a Italian cypress there that I'm using as a kind of one of my guideposts. So it's giving me placement. And that's kind of what you need to get right off the bat, is get the placement kind of right. Off to the right, the building has a little bit more warmth through it, so you can add a little brown or a little orange. Up above here, down. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Yeah, you know, you guys heard me say that many times.
I like your version better.
Thank you.
It's good looking.
Thank you. This is kind of one of the fun things that you guys might find.
What a treat, you're here again today.
In painting. This app.
Right. We've seen you here at least 3 times. That is
Well, getting a lot of people stopping by. Thankfully, they're complimenting. Usually you'll find that, you guys, you're not going to, if you guys are painting on location, you're not going to find people that are come by and tell you generally what's wrong with it. If you do, yeah, if you do, you just ignore them, okay? Because that's their opinion. And really, so much of art is all about opinion. So we're getting most of these areas laid in. Another building right about here. And there's a darker building right down here. And we got that building in. There's actually a part of a building right about in here. Just kind of stuff that in there. Little touches here. Now we got all this in between area. I see, and I'm using kind of the same color, that ultramarine, and I'm going to bring a little bit more. Oh, keep forgetting how powerful alizarin is, and every now and then I'll use it, and it just jumps too much. But I wanted a little bit of it as we move up into these areas. There's a big building right here, just so we get a little color variation in here, so it isn't. I feel like I haven't painted the same blue everywhere. I'm gonna move up here where it's a little bluer. And I have 2 or 3 colors in this blue that are very close together, very, very close together. Put it down. I added a building. Don't tell anybody, okay? I needed to because I'm widening. I'm adding more stuff in here, so I needed to add a building. I'm widening a couple of these buildings. I'm going to hit a little bit lighter and warmer, and for that I just lighten the blue, get a little bit of warmth into it, and we're going to hit the building right out here. That's way too far over. It should be up in here, so if I need to, I will add rooftops. Anything back in here, little tiny pieces of buildings. I see right below this even. Okay, so we've got placement of some of these. There's actually something right about here which actually balances this. This area right in here is probably more of this. Okay. So some of these areas need the foliage to overlap, because foliage overlaps the buildings. So we want to do this anyway. Foliage is going to overlap that building, and it's going to come down, overlap here a little bit, overlap here. And this is where you're actually looking in at the individual buildings and looking at the different characteristics.
Oh, sorry. Very nice.
Thank you.
Are you teaching a class?
No, he's just plein air painting.
No, I'm
sort of plein air painting. You're doing half plein air painting.
Yeah, I'm painting outside, but I'm doing a live demonstration.
Oh, I'm
Say
sorry.
hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Well, I guess I'm over here. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. So you're on Zoom?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, enjoy.
Do these every Friday.
Oh, okay. Can I get on and listen to you?
Sure. Ask, she'll tell you.
Oh, tell me how to get on and listen to her.
And we'll keep going. We're going to start in with some of the roof lines. Some of the roof lines. Now we'll do is get into the overlap, foliage, overlapping the buildings. So I'm going to go back to this flat. And we're going to start to add a little bit more information. Right there, we're going to put the tower. Okay, there's a tower right here, right here. So I'm adding a little bit of tone here. We're going to get that tower in right now. Do that, hit it. So we're getting a little bit, hopefully what you begin to see is some of everything that I've been doing beginning to make some sort of sense. Usually you don't in the beginning. That's just the way it is. In the beginning of most paintings, it just kind of looks chaotic. So a lot of this is just close value matching right now. This is kind of orange. So we're gonna get that orange in. That orange roof, not enough. It's not standing out enough. Let's try it again. And this is where you're looking at the buildings, trying to distinguish what's different from one from another. And they put a red, some of these darker red roofs in here. Put one right here. Put it down. And a little bit of more of an orange. Up there. And a little lighter. So I added a little maples. Now, first time I've used maples. So I'm going to stand back, start to make some sort of sense. That's the way it goes. It's going to, hopefully as you progress, it will make more and more sense. It'll start to be more and more believable. But you don't start with every little detail in every little building. And there's a kind of a red roof here. And I'm going to add some things to that, which I didn't see earlier. And there's a little bit of warmth right here. It's too dark. We hit it one more time. I just added some maples. That feels a little better. It's a little warmer over on this side. Yep. Again, keep thinking of architecture as very firm, crisp edges. So I want this tower to come down lower and a little bit of a top. Now this tower is going to go up higher, slightly warmer, a little higher. It's going to go up around there, and then that's going to go a little wider. And then we're going to add lights to this, by the way. In case you guys are wondering, we are going to add lights, and we're going to add. Let's see. I'm going to keep moving. I want to get these kind of darker. I'm dealing with pretty much, well, let's put a little bit of light on something. Maples, little of the orange, little ochre, this roof line right here. Okay, it's a little bit of, not much, but it's a little touch of light hitting on that. Now I may need to bring a little bit of that color right there. Stand back. Okay. I just stood back to see if it was shaping up. It feels okay. And I'm looking at my time. And we're sitting just about 30 minutes into it. So beginning to feel like I can get enough of it going and make sense out of it, which is really what we're trying to do. You know, in this 90-minute, basically, what you end up with is what I'm shooting for is what I would say is an accurate lay-in. If I can get that, and many times lay-ins themselves look beautiful. And often I find artists prefer that. They, of course, the artists, unfortunately, aren't the guys that go out and purchase artwork. So you always have to decide, am I painting for the public or am I painting for the artist? Hopefully you're painting for yourself. Because if you're doing that, you're doing it the right way. So my preference is always for it to look refined until you get up close and you just see, hey, that's just a bunch of paint strokes. Some of it's kind of thick and sloppy. You know, it's like if it works that way, I'm pretty happy. So when I'm up close to it like this, what I see is a bunch of paint strokes. I don't see refinement. I don't see it looking. I'm painting with confidence that it's doing what I want it to do, and when I'm all done, it'll work. And sometimes it does. It's that simple. And sometimes it does. And that's when you just go back and fix it. Like I said, if it isn't working, fix it. If you don't know what to do, work on another painting until you do know what to do. Don't sit there and just do stuff. You sit there and do stuff, I think you're going to be sorry, because it just takes, you know, you're trying and losing. You should have a feel of what you need to do, and granted, sometimes you don't know what you need to do. I understand that completely. You don't know what you need to do something else. Now we get warm lights, little warm reflective lights, really cool. And this is where you start getting down into the kind of the fun, small stuff that really starts to pull it together if you've set it up properly. And that I use that word over and over again when I teach. When I teach, setting your painting up properly. People always want to know more about the finishing. The finishing is the stuff that works if you've set it up properly. If you haven't set it up properly, you can add finishing touches to anything and it isn't going to work. But if you set it up properly, your finishing touches will probably make a heck of a lot of sense. So we're going to add a little bit of light that's streaming down across here, up here, a little bit more green. They don't paint the same color all the time because nature doesn't have a green that it favors. It has all kinds of greens, all kinds of browns. So keep that in mind. Always remix. That's one thing, I never worry if I run out of a color. I remix it as close as I can, and if I'm not right on the money, that will probably help. You're probably adding a little light too fast, too soon on this. So I'm gonna abandon it. I catch myself. It's like I've painted on heads before, and as I'm painting, I'm going too far. I'm going too far. So I just back off. Cut it out. My line to myself is always, you know better than that. Shades of my parents, you know better than that. Sometimes I do know better than that. Pull a little light right there. Gotta stand back. See how it's shaping up. It's coming out okay. Some of the buildings are a little lighter than I think they need to be. And the key might be this. I might be able to lighten that. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to take my filbert with some ultramarine blue. I'm going to try it right here. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's do it again. And what we want to really hit is where it hits down below. So we can make the buildings look darker by lightening that. See?
He was talking to
to get the buildings. So without darkening buildings, you create them dark. It goes back to my mentor, Don Putman, that used to say, a lot of times it's not the color of the thing that you're circling, it's the colors that are around it. And this is a perfect example of that. By lightening the mountains as it goes sinks down into this valley, I am making the buildings, the architecture, feel darker. But you gotta get some sort of a nice blend so it doesn't look too crazy. To get back, yeah, that's what it needed, truthfully. And that's, you know, as you're working, you're going to adjust. It's just the way it goes. It's part of painting. Part of painting is knowing when to adjust and how to adjust. It's not always that you've done it right, and it's the problem isn't what you're painting at the present. Sometimes the problem is what you painted previously. And that's why that wonderful saying that painting isn't always a forward process really holds a lot of truth to it, because it really doesn't. It very often means you have to go back. And a lot of times I say to someone before they're doing their homework, if you find it isn't working, go back to when it was working and then proceed. Don't just keep plowing ahead thinking I can fix it. Sometimes it was working better before. So as I stand back, that is feeling really exactly more.
And it's so much better than a picture.
Closely. That's the whole idea.
Yeah. There's no depth in the picture.
The whole idea is
in your painting.
to
You got it better. I think it's early morning sun or sunset.
It's just
with
better.
the
It was
light on the buildings. Yeah, it's wonderful.
it's very
Is
mystic.
it? You doing?
Yeah, good one.
Yeah, see, you guys are both super fans.
Bye-bye.
Well, to guess where it was. Of course, I didn't guess exactly where it was. It must feel like Italy. That makes me feel pretty good. That's literally what it is. It's Ravello in Italy. Okay, so now the buildings feel like they're the right value, and I didn't do anything to the buildings. I did nothing to the building. Instead, all the work that I did was that mountain behind, and it didn't take that long. Okay. So I'm standing back to look at it. It's starting to feel good. So it's making me feel better. And we're about almost half done. It's a little bit right in here.
Oh, is that Italy?
Yeah, you're the second person to guess that.
Cinque Terre or
Amalfi Coast.
Amalfi Coast? Oh, gorgeous.
Side of the building. Some of the lights. Also, there's little lights. They're warmer lights, but I'm going to probably paint them in this value because I have it in my brush. But little posts are probably going to be too thick. Okay, right in there. That's architectural detail. All right. Then there's a building behind this tree, and I see the roof line, which is warm. And this is where it's good if you use a small brush. So I'm going to go back to the brush I was drawing with initially. We're going to put in a roof line here, not dark enough. So I added some asphalt. Better. Better. Top of that, and then there's another roof right here, and that's has a little bit more of that little bit of the red orange characteristic. It's right there, and there. So we're stuck there. Amplifying it out. It's a little rim. I'm going to save some of my lights and darks. I'm going to start putting in some darks into some of these elements. Make them read a little better with a small brush right here. Architectural. Architectural. By architectural, I mean a really clean, firm stroke. I don't mean anything else other than that. It's a very clean, firm type of a stroke. I don't have a favorite surface. Probably Centurion linen, if I had to pick one off the top of my head. But I like the variations. Man, I've had students that say that, well, I'm having trouble because the surface isn't that good. Well, I haven't found a surface that I wrote. I like the hard surfaces sometimes because if I paint on canvas for too many times, then I want to switch over and paint on something firmer. And if I paint on these firm surfaces such as hardboard, then I want to switch over and paint on canvas. So what I found is I go back and forth in my likes and dislikes of surfaces. Like I said, I really don't have any dislikes. I had a good friend of mine, an illustrator, real good illustrator. He always said he didn't want to be handcuffed by whatever tool he had. So if I have bad brushes, I'll work with bad brushes. If I have surfaces that I'm not familiar with, I'll try and make those surfaces really interesting and make them work. So it's one thing or another. Now I'm going to put some windows in some of these buildings. Just adding my asphalt and the glue together, mixing it in with kind of that green. And we're going to try and hit some windows. After I hit a couple, I'm going to get back and work because it might feel too harsh. No, they don't. They're okay. They're not great, but they're okay. Bring that foliage up a little here. Little another window here. A couple of windows right in here, one here. It's a little darker than I wanted. One there, and a third one right there. So now hopefully these buildings are just beginning to make a little sense. And then there's going to be some really fun lights that I'm going to put on at the end, which hopefully is really going to bring it to some sort of conclusion. Oops. I need to put some information on these hills, so I want to leave time for that. And that's part of this whole thing when you're painting on location, you're painting quickly. What you're doing is you're using your time to your benefit. Like that's way too dark. That's just too dark. So mix it back with the green. Put it back in. Not as dark. Another one. Not as dark. And a bunch of windows in this building. So we're gonna put a barrage of windows. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And if you see 6 windows and you only put 4 in, no one's gonna count. Keep that in mind. People just don't count. You know, it's not. It has to look right. If it looks right, that's the battle. If it doesn't look right, then you have to do something. Now, this building back here, this side of this building has a little bit more blue light. It's a little cooler. And so we're going to show a little bit of a change right here. So a little bit of a change right here. Okay. And I see little pieces here and there of different buildings. I see a building up here, which I could probably right there hit a little light, a little cooler light on, and I'll go over here. See a little cooler light hitting right there. You see these subtle variations. Add them in subtly. Don't add them in too powerfully. Some of these instances I may have made things a little too strong. Can't tell. Divide that building up. Couple marks there. Little foliage. Up over the. Let's do it again. A little bit of foliage right here. So overlapped. And stand back. A little bit more in here. here. It moves over. Oh, I just caught a wall. I didn't see it earlier because it's so dark and it's right. Well, that's way too light. You know what you do when it's too light? You push it back into that paint. Put it in there light. I'm going to take this foliage color. I'm just going to smear over it. Do it one more time. Wall right about there. Looks like it extends all the way over here. Okay. And there's some pillars sticking up from that wall. There's a lot of this stuff where they're kind of in semi-ruin. A little bit going on there. We add some lights. Hopefully by the time I have lights on these buildings, it's all going to come to life a little bit more. And I want to give myself the appropriate amount of time. Little window there, a couple down below. This isn't the best brush to do these windows with, but what I have, and as I said, I will work with the tools I have and somehow try and make them work. And what I found, the question that was brought up about surfaces, by working on different surfaces, you learn different things. And then when it's time that you really want to do something important, it's just for you or for a client, you have a good feeling as to the right surface to work on for what you want to achieve. I think that's important. Stand back. And sometimes a little darker than I like. Those windows are coming out a little darker. I think that roof can be worked out a little bit better. I think up here there is nothing. I just added something. I remember when I said I was adding a building. That's what I added, right? And so I'm going to kind of cover that with a little bit of foliage and come into the building above. Right up in here, there's a lot of kind of busy stuff going on. So we're going to go in with the darker colors. Clean up my fingers. I keep putting it down, and we're going to put little the occurrences that are happening on the roof. Windows. Yes. Down. Let's see. Windows in this building. Put some back here. I want to clean up the top of that building a little bit. Like, nope, not light enough. Let's try it again. Nice clean architectural stroke. That works. The only thing I really don't like right now are these windows. They're just a little darker than I really wanted, but I'm going to leave them alone for now. If I have to white not put it back in. More foliage. Don't like doing foliage with that brush, but it's a brush I have in my hand and I'm playing games with time right now. I kind of like the way this is starting to come out here. I can see a little bit more blue back in there. That helped. That helped that quite a bit. This is kind of vague. This I want to be a little bit more accurate with. So we're going to go window, another window, window down in here. Bump the camera. I'm sorry about that, you guys. Oh, look at that. I made a mess. Yes, I have made many a mess. And so I fixed my mess. I don't know if I fixed it well, but I fixed it. And that's the perils of putting your finger down. And this is where I might pull my liner. Instead of doing my windows with a liner, I'm not going to, but there are stuff on the roof, pipes, and I call it activity. You know, you just never quite sure what the heck it is, but you want to get it in there. You put my dirty finger down. Now I'm going to take that light blue that I was using for the mountains, and make sure my finger is clean. I'm going to put the light coming through right there, there, and same up here.
The state thing, last time. Okay.
Thank you.
Kind of mess that up. There we go. Some of the accidental foliage stuff I kind of like. I'm going to start popping a few little lights on things now. We're sitting about 35 minutes away from completion. First thing I'm going to do is add a little light on this. Okay, now what is that? That's ochre? No, I'm sorry, I picked up maples. But now I picked up ochre, maples, and green. And I'm going to put a little ultramarine into that. And I'm going to just test it. It's too dark. So what I can add white, I can add maples. Let's try it again. Probably a little too colorful. I don't want quite that much color. So I'm going to take ultramarine because the mountain's already kind of blue. It'll make it feel more comfortable. So, but I want a similar value. A little bit, I got the color right. I got the value a little off, a little lighter. And we're going to hit this light that comes down and begins to illuminate this back hill. We stand back. That's pretty good. Probably a little more yellow than I wanted, but the value is good. So a little bit more blue, a little bit more white, and we see it happening kind of here. And it works its way down here. Look at it. It's easier to do this with this brush. Now, every time I put that down, I am actually contaminating it with the color that's already there. So I have to keep remixing it. Stand back. Yeah, it's working. Little flickers of light here and there, right on the tip. And then a little bit as it sneaks up in here. And I'm probably going to raise that part of that mountain. Then I get a little bit, I'm going to take a little more blue, but I get a little bit of light right about here. Okay. That's starting to work. I want to go back to the base mountain color. A little darker. Out here, look, that's a little too dark, a little lighter. And we want to just bring the edges of the hillside up a little bit higher. I don't mind if it's not the right color. In fact, I kind of like it when it's not because it makes it feel more believable. Okay. Now we go into some of these, and add some lights back in there. And I think I don't have it. I'll use this brush. I don't have a small enough, but I think I can make this brush work. So I'm going to look for little pieces of white, and I'm going to use maples, a lot of maples and white. And I've got to loosen that paint up because both my maples and my white are pretty stiff. And I can, if I had my medium, I'd use it. So, but I'm going to use a little bit of turp and a little bit of this gel that I have together. And first thing we're going to do is warm it up a little bit. Now that I just looked back at my reference and I saw it was a little warmer, so I added some cat orange into that color. I think I'm closer. And I see the first spot is right here. All right. And the second spot is right.
But the thing is, it's sort of like, well, I read an article here.
There. All right. And then I want to get, for lack of a better word, kind of some knife edge. So I want to get a nice thin edge on my brush, clean my finger, so I can come down and go I want to go a little brighter. Do it one more time. Probably a little thicker than I wanted. But we're adding little pieces of light that is kind of filtering in and catching little bits and pieces. I see a little bit right in here. See a little bit here. That is wrong. We'll take care of that later. I get a little warmth, darker, a little warm glow from this light back on this building. That's too much. So I just clean my brush and went right over it same way. Just mellow, I call it mellowing it out. I think I'm going to grab this my liner for some of this work because there's little tiny slivers that I want to hit here and there. I want to hit one right over here. This is right top. A little bit back there on that building. A little bit defining this part of the roof. Keep standing back. Now I'm going to add some of the greenery, the lights on the greenery. I started doing that earlier, and I'm going to do a little bit more of it right now. Green, ochre, mixed into the browns, so it stays warm. And if I need to, I add orange. I add a little bit of the orange. And we're going to start kind of right in here. Oh, that's pretty good. Right, I see light right in there, illuminating some of the tops. So it's catching a lot of top light. You really begin to start to see it. Now I could be using a smaller brush, but if I do, I overpick it. So what I found is if I use this big brush and then go back and refine, I get a better feeling for it. Now, when I just stood back, it felt green. So I'm taking more ochre. I just added more ochre. The ochre stiff, so I added ochre and turf. And right above this wall, right here. And above here. And I mentioned earlier, a little piece of greenery right about in here. This, I need to fade that back. This is coming out okay. A little bit brushes up, and then it sneaks down. Stand back. Little pieces in here. Little piece of light, gotta go lighter. Go a little bit in here, sneak it down. Start to illuminate. So hopefully you begin to see this thing start to come to life. It's kind of dull and dark in the beginning. Again, knowing the stages that you need to go through in something, in every kind of painting, I was going to just refer to this, in every kind of painting, knowing the stages you need to go through is most of the battle. I was going to say half the battle, it's more than that. And one of the things is if you always want to try and make your work look too perfect and finished too quickly, it tends not to go out, just not to hold it together. So you want to keep it, fresh. You don't want it to look overworked. And if it does, I will just smear it. If it's starting to look too overworked in any one area, and I can only assess that by standing back. Now, there's more light to get. Happening, even lighter. Even lighter. All right, I'm gonna stop on that part of it for a little bit, and I'm gonna go back on this big mountain here. I'm gonna go and take the bottom part of that. Take white paint, turp, ultramarine, more white paint. Probably not, still not enough. Yep. More white paint. Just a tad of alizarin to get that violet kind of color. We're going to try. It's too wet. See what happens when it gets too wet? Too much turp. Now there are people, a lot of the contemporary, younger contemporary painters like to work with grips. I don't have anything against them. It's just not who I am. So I don't find a problem with it. When that happens, just clean it up. Take a brush. This is our background now. And just kind of clean some of these areas up. And back to that violet. It should be lighter, and it should be a little bit, for lack of a better word, prettier color. And, you know, if you play with this long enough, you kind of get a feel for how far you can push this. I'm standing back. I like it better. That's a good thing. Clean, and we can clean edges up now. Look at that. We can kind of come in, clean some of these cool areas up. I feel a little like Edgar Paint with all these chunky, chiseled strokes. I lay them in like that, then I hide them. And we'll start getting it to work together, getting it to work its way up. Now, I also see something really kind of cool here. I look very carefully. This mountain overlaps this mountain, so watch. Get a little bit of that overlap, and then it almost dissipates, and the mist takes over, and we can't see it. But we got a little bit of difference in there. Right in here, don't like it; it's a little too strong. And I can see little areas, really subtle, add a little bit more violet. And we're going to kind of bring area there, another area right here on those mountains. So the mountains are more than just a silhouette. There is structure, but the structure is so close in value, you almost cannot just see it, and you don't look for it at the beginning. Now that I have the time, I'm looking back into these areas and I'm saying, boy, I see a little bit of structure there. See a little bit in here. See a little bit right coming down from here. So I also see some here. See some from right here. So I overplayed that a bit. So I'm going to take one of my clean brushes. No paint on it, just smearing it back into that paint. So it's there, but it's much more subtle now. Starting to work. And we're about 20 minutes away, so I feel okay because I feel like I can go back and worry about some of the areas that bother me a little bit. Um, you don't think about sometimes these areas as being a problem, but sometimes by just building a subtle color or two back into the paint you already applied will add just that much more believability. Send it back. Start to take shape. Now, if I want to, I shouldn't even say if I want to, because I do want to. I want to go into some of the buildings again. Probably, this is probably going to be the last pass at this thing.
Just two more blacks.
So, and what I'm going to do is clarify some things, some darks, some lights, some colors. I see this rooftop getting bluer, for example. So I'm mixing up a blue and being a little bit more careful in my color mixture. It's too light. So a little bit more blue, a little bit more alizarin, a little bit more blue. So try it again. That's probably a little too dark. So we've got to find that happy middle about here. And the roof is darker than the building, which means the building I probably have too light. I mean too dark. So we come in. Lighten that building up a little bit. Again, windows still feel pretty dark here. Probably a little darker than I wish. So I'm going to go up above it. And I see that beautiful light spot, which is right here. And it's on the side of this building. There's a building here. And this light, this warm light is right here. There's a little light up here. And if I want to, something that I haven't done, but it's something that I've done before in painting situations like this, is you can start adding light to buildings. If you feel like, well, just I need a little light here and there. So I'm going to take a little bit of a warm, we're going to add a little bit of light back in here. And let's see where else. On the side of that building, I think I need my liner so I can make it thin enough, because I wasn't getting a thin enough light. Bring my little finger and we'll put a little light here. And a little light on the side of this building. So we got a little light there too. Now I'm going to put a light on this building. There isn't one, but I'm going to put one there. Well, that helped actually. Oh, I'm so glad it did. You know, you go to do stuff, you think, well, I think I need to add a little something, and you do it, and then you go, yeah, I didn't do it. I just didn't get what I wanted out of it. So I'm adding a few warmer lights there on this rooftop. This is those kind of little punches that you do at the end as you stand back and realize that you need there are certain things that is necessary, and as these things are necessary, you add them. I'm going to clean up two of the trees, the dark green and the brown, a little darker than I have right here. Clean that up because I got a drip through there. And this is pretty good. A little darker down here. Right. And get the foliage going over that wall that I kind of put in. Lose some of that. Some of it I want to get looser with. I want to get a little bit freer and not be as concerned with the believability. I do see a little building right here, as I did right here. This is just clean. This is cleanup now. This is basically what you see me doing now is cleanup. Little areas, and it's what you do is you browse or you look at your entire painting. And you say, how is it shaping up? Do I feel good about it? Are there, and if you don't about a certain area, and I don't look at my reference, I look at my painting. All right, then I look back at my reference. I look back at it to say, is there something I missed? Is there something I missed? And if there is, then I take care of it. I see dark, but subtle dark right there. And a subtle dark right there. And then nice little window right there. Hopefully the whole thing is starting to shape up. Still don't like some of the still don't like some of the transitions here. So I want to smooth it up. If you make your stroke one direction, then you create too much interest in that one direction. So it's very important as you do, if you're going to do this, that you get your brush going so we don't see directional. At least that's the kind of work that I like. I don't like when I see a really strong directional piece. Beautiful. So this blue mist is working pretty nice. I think it's a little too abrupt. So I'm going to take a darker blue with a little violet in it. We'll test it, not dark enough. And we're going to start to, not dark enough. Wow, but my value is off right now. So let's try this. Little more violet than I wanted. How we doing, Tom? We're okay. There we go. Bring it down. Get it, work its way down. Same thing I was just doing up here. And this is a judgment from when by standing back. I didn't see it up close, but when I stood back, I felt like, well, you know, it's a little too. It's just it's a gut call, for lack of a better word. And there's going to be certain things that we're going to do that are going to be gut calls. They're not clear cut visually. They're things that you've learned over the years because you've painted a lot of pictures. And you realize that, boy, if I add a little bit of this, I can get it to work better. So I can see that this is working better here for sure. Probably take a little bit of the blue, put it right about in here. A little bit right about it. A little of that blue violet, maybe a little bit right in here. More. We're chopping away at the lights. Don't want to go too, if I go too dark, too contrasty, I'm going to get into that range. I do not want to get into that range. But since I just brought it up, I can take that range, take my asphaltum, my ultramarine blue, and my sap green together, and start to push darks. So we're coming forward. Start to push darks. Bring it forward. Step back, so it's working. Just add some darks up front to bring it closer to us. And some dry brush. It works. Never know. You see it horizontal, these horizontal strokes are picking up reflection. So if I do vertical strokes, I know in the darks, it tends to work better. Although I don't like only vertical strokes. So I'll put them in there and then take some out. Let me get back for a second. Yeah, we're bringing that forward. What we're doing is we're taking the greens and you're just making them darker and warmer as they come forward. Pull a little bit back in here. And you break it up too. The other thing you do is, as I said, foliage, particularly greens and foliage, is not a green. It's a variety. So you get to see. Now, I still have this light. You guys, you should have called me on that. We didn't, but what the heck, let's fix it. Number one, there's some lights back here I want to fix. On the foliage back behind there, and then it's just darker there. If I just basically take that same kind of greenish color, overlap it a little bit more. Overlap. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to try something. I just think I think it needs something. So I'm going to add some light. Took all the light warm colors. We're going to add a little piece of light on this building here. That feels okay. That feels like it's working pretty good. Clean this up here. Let that building come over. So now I'm clarifying. I'm cleaning up. There are things that aren't working that I wanted to work a little better. And you can do what I am doing now for the next 3 hours. I am not going to, but you can easily, like in here, I can say this looks lighter, looks up a nice new color, a little bit more. The end of that tree, back in here. A little bit of a light on the foliage below it. Right there. Another light right in here. This tree is good, but it needs to be more dense. On this side of this tower, there's a little piece of warm light. And it's right there. And you can see how just these little pieces of light begin to sparkle this thing. It begins to really get it to sparkle. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and I didn't do it, and I'm going to try it now just to see, just to show you something and see. Sometimes you can add a little bit of interest. And I'm going to take pink, which is pretty much alizarin and white. I'm going to try and match my value pretty carefully. That's too dark. That's too dark. That's better. So we're going to put some warm snap colors back in here. Interesting when you do this kind of stuff on location. A lot of people coming by and paying a lot of time. Now, do I like that? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm going to go and add a little blue to that color. And I'm going to break it up. Oops. I'm going to break that up. There we go. So it isn't so solid. And you can do this back and forth until you get a feel, until you get a movement of color that begins to feel right. It begins to feel comfortable. So the pink is not on top. It's part of the underpainting, so to speak. Now, when I did that all of a sudden appeared too dark. So it's kind of neat that I'm doing some adjustments. I had a little time to do what I call it playing with adjustments, because what you begin to find out then is what you would do if you would go further into this. So I'm liking that. I'm going with more of a blue and a white. Slightly, just because it felt kind of dark next to that. Color feels good. You stand back. That feels better. Feels a lot better, actually. Now, these are subtleties. I'm not even sure how much of this, when I say it feels better, how much of that is translating on screen. You know, it's because super subtleties are very hard to kind of show on video. A little lighter. Bring it up. Looking at the time, I've got just about 5 minutes. I think I'm going to finish on time for a change, as opposed to my last one, which was of course, that was a big painting. moving a camera because I just kicked it. There you go. I didn't just kick it because I was frustrated. I kicked it because I was clumsy. You guys. I had a discussion with one of my classes last week about frustration. I asked them, how often do you feel frustrated? And everybody said they feel frustrated at times. One lady says she's felt always frustrated. And I said, well, you shouldn't always feel frustrated. But, you know, you really have to learn how to work with that frustration aspect of painting because it just is part of it. And frustration is basically when you're painting and it isn't working. And I understand that can be frustrating. So do adjustments, take a break. I still say taking a break is a biggie. A lot of people don't take enough breaks. You know, I'm doing these in an hour and I'm not really taking any breaks. If I would take a break, I would probably come back and make some additional assessments, possibly some additional changes. But it's one of those things that you're working, and if you're doing plein air, you're really not taking a break. I don't when I do plein air. I basically just plow on through, unless I'm going on a 2-day larger plein air piece. Then I might take my break is from one day to the next. So if there's anything else, I think I could push a little bit more light here and there right at that point. I don't want to overpick it because I'm pretty well done. And this week 101, really amazing. It just doesn't seem like it's been that long. Some of you guys have been hanging in there for a lot of these, and I'm very appreciative that people are still getting something out of these. So as long as I feel people are getting something out of it and I'm having fun, I'm going to keep doing this. And it's always a challenge, and it's good to challenge yourself. I hope all of you do that sometimes. Challenge yourself, try something, and it might come out okay, might come out really good, and then you really learn something. And then it might not work that well. And in that case, you probably learned something. You learn, don't do that again. What I do is I mix a little orange into my greens, just because I felt like all my light greens were all too much the same kind of yellow. But overall, it has kind of the look I was trying to achieve conceptually. In other words, when I started this thing, I had an idea in mind of how I wanted it to be. I was changing the design, as you can see, by changing the format, lightening up that building. And then I'll add a couple windows and we'll probably call this one quits. Add a couple of windows back into that building. Even if they're not there, it needs something. So does this. I can see it right now. Sometimes the stuff on the periphery, right on the edge, you forget about. That feels, I'm standing back. Feels relatively convincing. I'm pretty much, I'm done with it. I can see adding 2 more darks to show off the highlighting of that stuff. But that's pretty much it. I think I might hit this tree one more time because I don't think I was bold enough with it. And that's pretty much our Ravello scene. So now I'm going to give you one last assessment. My overall opinion, these mountains are too dark. So what I might do is when we're all done, is I might go back and lighten those just a little bit. It's not that it's bad. I just felt it when I stood back. So have a good day. Keep painting. Maybe thank Scott. Thank the both Ralph and Diane Waterhouse for letting me paint out in front of their gallery. All the people that stopped by. Kind of, everybody likes when you paint a location, so they're generally very complimentary. Not always warranted, but the way it goes. Anyway, everybody, thank you. I'm calling it quits right now. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Anna. Thank everyone for watching, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.